into the evening. They'll start to ease though later on in the evening, giving way to some clear spells, a few mist or fog patches. Certainly clearer towards the northeast of the UK, some mist and fog in places here, and a touch of frost towards the northeast in a few rural spots. Whereas out towards the west and southwest, it's a milder picture, but here we'll see some showery bursts of rain moving in from the west and southwest. One or two of those bursts of rain could turn heavy as we head towards Easter Monday morning. As for Monday itself then, plenty of fine weather to start the day towards the north and east. This showery rain though moving in from the southwest, moving northeastwards into many parts of the UK. Some skies are brightening towards the south and east as we go through the day, but that could well spark off one or two heavy, potentially even thundery showers. And in the sunshine, temperatures again not doing too badly, peaking in the mid to high teens. A bit warmer too out towards the east and northeast of the UK, with temperatures up to 14 Celsius near the east coast.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps four, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dewbs Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good morning and a very happy Easter. Welcome to Sunday with Michael Portillo for 2 hours of religion, arts, culture and current affairs. The Easter Sunday Mass is underway at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, where the Pontiff is expected to deliver his Urbi et Orbi, a papal message to the city and to the world. Art critic Estelle Lovett will join me to reflect on the most significant artworks that depict the death and resurrection of Christ. We'll also discuss the news this week that Pope Francis has put architect Antoni Gaudí on the path to sainthood. Elsewhere, I'll ask my panel, is the British working class vote up for grabs? Traditionally Labour, some of it's now nationalists. The Red Wall went Tory in 2019, and Reform UK lures it with policies on immigration and the nationalisation of steel. Stefan Kyriazis will be here to discuss his trips to the land of smoke and mirrors in the theatre this week. And returning to the Easter theme, prick up your bunny ears as an artisan chocolatier will join me to share some of her delicious handmade treats. But first, your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Michael, thank you. Good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. These are your headlines. The King and Queen have arrived at St George's Chapel for the traditional Easter Sunday service at Windsor Castle. They're joined by members of the royal family, including Princess Anne and the Duke of Edinburgh. Meanwhile, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided not to attend the Windsor service and are spending the weekend with their children in Norfolk instead. The Mirror newspaper is reporting that the couple are choosing to spend time together as a family before Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis go back to school. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has visited St Andrew's Church in Bedfordshire and has shared an Easter Sunday message.
Thank you for welcoming me. I mean, this is what the church is so important about, isn't it? I'm a stranger, I've not been in your church before, and already I feel I know you, and you've welcomed me in. But that in itself is part and parcel of what you do, what communities do across the whole country.
Have a great Easter.
Thank you very much, thank you, I really appreciate that. What are you doing here?
So we're making a garden.
The Prime Minister took to X to wish a very happy Easter to Christians across the UK and around the world as they celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. He continued saying, "As we look to the future with hope, I want to thank Christians for their huge contributions to our country." Elsewhere, Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian attacks are continuing despite Vladimir Putin announcing a 30-hour Easter truce in Ukraine. The Ukrainian president accused the Russian army of trying to create an impression of an Easter ceasefire. It comes after the Russian president spoke in a televised meeting with his commander-in-chief, announcing a temporary ceasefire that will last until midnight tonight. But writing on social media, President Zelensky has said Russian assault operations continue on several frontline sectors and Russian artillery fire has not subsided. In other news, French President Emmanuel Macron will reportedly make a state visit to the UK in May, several months before President Trump. That's according to the Sunday Times. Mr Macron will be hosted by King Charles at Windsor Castle as Britain attempts to negotiate closer trade ties with Europe. Currently, few government and royal officials know the details of the engagement, which would be Macron's first state visit to Britain 8 years after taking office. Speaking in the Oval Office on Thursday, Donald Trump suggested his own visit was being planned for September. The invitation from Charles was issued when Sir Keir Starmer visited Washington in February. Now, police are investigating after trans rights activists reportedly defaced a statue of a feminist hero during a protest against the Supreme Court's ruling on the definition of a woman. The Parliament Square statue of Millicent Fawcett, a prominent campaigner for women's rights in the 19th century, was daubed with graffiti. It happened as thousands of protesters marched through central London in an emergency demonstration against Wednesday's decision that only biological women are women. The Met Police confirmed that it was investigating criminal damage to a total of 7 statues in Westminster during the protest. The force said its officers were in Parliament Square at the time, but did not witness the criminal damage take place. And free breakfast clubs are launching at 750 schools across England next week, but teachers have warned the government funding will fall short of the cost. From Tuesday, thousands of parents will be able to access 30 minutes of morning childcare as part of a trial period ahead of an expected national rollout. Labour made a manifesto commitment to spend £315 million on the programme by 2028. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said the move would help with the breaking down of barriers to opportunity, but school leaders have warned the pilot could lead to a budget shortfall. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michael.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back. Mass is currently being said in St. Peter's in Rome. Pope Francis has just appeared in St. Peter's Square, apparently to deliver the traditional Urbi et Orbi, the message to the city and to the world. We can hear the Pope's voice now. Leaders from across the globe have marked this important date in the Christian calendar with Easter messages. So we can hear the Pope. That was the Pope a moment ago. Here is the Pope in his wheelchair appearing. Let me welcome my panel at this point. I've got the former Conservative advisor Jennifer Powers, I've got the chief political correspondent at the Times, Aubrey Allegretti, and I've got the trade unionist Andy Twelves. Welcome to you all. Aubrey, we're speculating as to whether the Pope is going to deliver this message. I imagine he must have a pretty elevated sense of his own mortality and a sense that this might be one of his last opportunities to deliver such a message. This message is traditionally delivered on solemn occasions for the Church, at Christmas and at Easter, and very often he will choose to talk about matters of wars, of human rights, of human suffering. What might we expect today, do you think?
Absolutely. Well, I suppose the end of one's life looming large does rather sort of focus things in one's mind, and so I suspect that the Pope's had lots of time to reflect in hospital on his own mortality and the role that he carries and will eventually bestow onto another person. And so he's been sort of quite outspoken in previous years about some of the issues you spoke about. This year we might hear sort of more general themes about, you know, mortality, about the need to sort of look after future generations, and spring is the perfect time to remind people of that.
It seems, Aubrey, I was just hearing in my ear there, we're getting updates all the time. It appears that the Pope probably won't deliver an Urbi and Orbi message. He's going to attend the Mass in St. Peter's. I dare say there's a possibility that some message will be issued in a written form. So, the Pope in St. Peter's, the Easter Mass underway, and the news that the Pope will attend the Mass. Jennifer, are you moved by these events?
Absolutely. Easter is such an important holiday for Christians around the world, and I was up early at the Service of Light in my local church, and it really is a day of celebration, spring, time of rebirth, but also reflecting on a moment of hope and optimism about what can be, that light coming into the darkness, and by the end of the service it was indeed daylight, and I was headed here to be with you today.
Which is very, very nice. And do you find it easy to feel a sense of hope? I mean, particularly with the events in Ukraine and Gaza and many other places in the world.
Well, for me, faith provides that hope in the face of darkness, in the face of war and continued suffering. So I feel perhaps more hopeful today than other days, just because one is very cognizant of the calendar and what it all symbolizes.
Andy, supposedly in Britain there's an uptick in Catholic worship, Catholic attendance at Mass and so on. Do you see that in Britain belief is becoming more important again to politicians than it was before?
I think certainly it's. I think it's always it's one of those things. It's a recession indicator when churches start getting more people attending, because when everything in the world is so dire, more people seek kind of faith and solace in the institutions of our country. One of them being the church, you know, the monarchy, these kind of establishments that have seemingly always been. But I think faith in our politicians. Obviously, we've got a more diverse group of politicians than ever before. You know, we've got Muslims, we've got Jews, we've got Sikhs in the House of Commons, whereas 40 years ago that would have been unthinkable almost. So I think faith as a concept is definitely more important to our politicians now than before, but not necessarily Christian faith, just faith in general.
Yes, and that's been reflected in the royal messages that we've received over this period. Aubrey, we have seen the Pope. We do know the Pope is going to attend Mass in St. Peter's. This might have seemed quite improbable a few weeks ago. I mean, this is really most extraordinary. There was so much fear that the Pope's life was coming to an end. But here he is on Easter Sunday, an extraordinary sight for Catholics.
He certainly had an extraordinary recovery, not least because of the sort of the emotional, sort of breathless nature of some of the updates that were coming from the Vatican during that period of his ill health, where, you know, it was quite sort of gratuitous in terms of some of the detail that we were hearing. And so I'm not sure that many people, given that level of detail, expected him to be able to get to this point. But obviously he has. And whether or not he'll be able to speak, I suppose that is an indicator of his health. But if he doesn't, he will certainly have wanted to be there, to be present, to be able to show people that he is still, you know, sort of firing on most cylinders.
Yes. Jennifer, would you hope to hear a papal message today? What issues do you think His Holiness might address? Probably not with his voice, but at least perhaps in writing.
Well, I think the world is going through such a large, significant period of transition that I would hope that even if he didn't address those specific issues, that he would talk about finding solace and faith in difficult times. So whether that be downturn or potential global recession on the back of tariff wars, whether that be the ongoing hostilities, as you mentioned, in Russia, Ukraine, or the Middle East, or indeed the persecution of Christians across Africa. I think to give people a semblance of hope that they can find in their faith.
Very good. Well, we've been watching live pictures there from St. Peter's Square in Rome, or strictly speaking, in the Vatican. At home, politics appear to rest on shifting sands. The Labour Party used to count on the working class vote, but was shocked to lose the red wall to the Tories in 2019. Whilst it regained all those seats last year, it's not clear that it regained the support of the proletariat, as Keir Starmer's Labour received fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn's Labour 5 years before. Meanwhile, Reform UK thinks that its stance on immigration attracts the ordinary voter, and it's courted working-class voters by embracing the nationalisation of British steel. Which party is Britain's true workers' party? Andy, what do you think?
I think, you know, the suggestion that Reform UK would ever be the party of the workers or even the party of the working class is ridiculous. This is the party that voted against the Employment Rights Bill, that have stood against the Employment Rights Bill, you know, banning the bill that would ban fire and rehire, that would give rights from day one, that would protect maternity and paternity pay, which would equalise the minimum wage. That on its own, I appreciate that's a trade union aligned thing, but even then, Reform UK, they talk about white working class issues. They say they're the defenders of the working class Britain. They only talk about them when it suits them. They'll talk about immigration because it's, you know, alienating the working class. They'll talk about big cities alienating the working class, but only when it suits them. They don't talk about the working class issues of, well, you know, child poverty, of dental issues on council estates. They don't talk about advocating for apprenticeships, which will raise people out of poverty. They choose and pick which times they want to advocate and defend and speak for the working class, but they never just speak for the working class in all their issues. They pick and choose and just use them as a political football. So to suggest that Reform UK are any sort of workers' party is ridiculous.
Andy, you've spoken with a passion that makes me think you're quite worried about this.
No, I'm not particularly worried. I think the Labour Party have certainly, you know, failed to truly represent the working class for the last 30 years. Certainly they've moved to a more middle-class metropolitan kind of voter base which wins them elections. But realistically, Reform UK, I'm tired of Reform UK using the working class as a political football. They've been doing it, you know, for well before Reform UK, well before the Brexit Party. Nigel Farage's been doing this since '97, and, you know, it's just silly to suggest he has the working class vote behind him because he just uses them as a football.
But Jennifer, he does have the working class vote before him. Does Andy protest too much? Well, look, the reality is that the working class don't agree with you. So,
well, I am working class, so I feel like I'm entitled to agree with myself. Thank you.
No, you can absolutely have whatever you want, but the working class as a whole don't agree with you, because we know from the polling that the majority of the working class...
well, C2DE voters, which is the legal working class, all support Labour. They overwhelmingly support Labour.
So we know from the polling that the most popular party amongst the working class in this country and across the Red Wall is Reform. I'm not a member of Reform. I don't have a dog in this fight in that sense. But the reality is that if you look across the top 100 target seats that Reform has for the next general election, nearly 2/3 of them are currently Labour held. So there is a disagreement between those who wish for Labour to represent the working class and the perceptions of the public, who by and large, at least at this point, across great swathes of the North, the Midlands and Wales, for instance, are at least saying, and in larger numbers voting, for reform. So,
Jennifer, I suppose we can't know what the working class thinks because it's a very variegated beast anyway, but tell me what things you think the working class is interested in that reform is offering?
Well, we know quite a lot, again, a generalisation, but we know that they care about secure borders and immigration. We know that they do care about jobs and prosperity and the cost of living. And those are things that reform speak of. And reform has the opportunity to take advantage of the Brexit realignment that the Tories squandered. And, you know, it's interesting what you say about the Employers' Rights Bill. And there are things within Labour's policy platform which I do think speak to the traditional working class. But you have to bear in mind that, on the other hand, they also are keeping on net zero. So they, you know, let's take control of Scunthorpe Steelworks, great. But if you're not going to allow the coking coal mine to reopen in Cumbria, if you're not going to bring down wholesale electricity costs to allow our industry to be competitive, then it's just the rhetoric of being for the working class when not in practice supporting reindustrialisation and working class jobs. So I think...
Let me stop there, Jennifer, I may, and bring in Aubrey. Aubrey, do you think Labour, which traditionally had the working class vote, has some difficulties with it today? The sorts of things that Jennifer is describing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's trying to cover multiple bases, and Andy made an astute point, which is that Nigel Farage has sort of played this game before. You know, UKIP went through an arc of kind of hoovering up, you know, traditionally Conservative voters. They were viewed originally in the sort of early kind of 2010s as a sort of party of people who wore red trousers, the Eurosceptics, people that sort of looked like Nigel Farage and wore the tweed, and then they sort of they morphed, they changed into becoming this kind of vacuum which represented people who felt sort of socially left behind by the Labour Party, and they started representing people based on their social values more, and that caused them to get millions of votes in the 2015 general election, which they got, I think, 1 seat for, an absolute maximum. So the force has always been there, but now Nigel Farage has learned from that experience. He is reinventing the party, and he's done well to obviously hoover up lots of Conservative voters at the last election, arguably gifted Labour a much bigger majority by, you know, splitting the vote on the right, and now he's going after those Labour votes as well.
And according to a piece in The Observer today, Ed Miliband is doubling down on net zero. Then it's not very clear what Labour's immigration policy is. It's not very clear what its policy is on biological realism. These are difficulties for Labour, aren't they?
Oh, certainly. I mean, you know, if I had all the ideas about Labour policy, I'd be working in the number 10 policy unit. But luckily, I'm here with you. I think when you look at, you know, policy literacy, it's fair to criticise Labour and it's fair to criticise the government. They are the governing party. But when you look at reform, they have no answers. Their big thing to fix immigration is to leave the ECHR. Well, they have never considered that that would completely collapse the Good Friday Agreement. That would collapse the Supreme Court rulings in this country. They have no answer to these questions when they're posed to them of what would happen. You can't just go, oh yeah, just bin off international law. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. So, you know, when you can say Labour don't really have the answers, well, reform certainly don't.
I would agree with Andy on that. I think one of the weaknesses of reform is at the moment they have such a weak policy platform. That's not to say I expect them to have everything written out 4 years before a general election. But when you look at the few areas where they have made policy pronouncements, they've been ridiculed. They just have a paucity of talent internally for whatever reason. Maybe they'll address it. But at this point, they just don't have the policy people internally to be turning out credible policy on a whole range of issues. So will it go beyond rhetoric and get into the detail remains to be seen.
Thank you, Jennifer. It does indeed. Jennifer Powers, Aubrey Allegretti and Andy Twells. They'll all be back at noon to discuss the alleged end of globalisation. Is it over? And are we sorry if it is? Coming up, this Easter Sunday, we'll continue our reflection on Easter with art critic Estelle Lovett as we take a closer look at the most famous artworks from throughout history that depict the Passion of Christ. Live pictures here from the Vatican, where Pope Francis has appeared during the Mass at St. Peter's. And this is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dewbs Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. The Passion of Jesus Christ has been depicted in various historical artworks from long before Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper and Michelangelo's Pietà, all the way down to Francis Bacon's triptych of the Crucifixion. Artists across the centuries have chosen to depict the moments from the New Testament at the foundation of Christianity. And in other art news, just this week, Pope Francis has put architect Antoni Gaudí on the path to canonisation. Joining me now is art critic Estelle Lovett. Estelle, good morning to you. Before the Renaissance and during the Renaissance, art is dominated by the depiction of Christian subjects, and presumably that's down to the religiosity of the period and the faith of the people who were patrons who were commissioning the works of art.
Yes, also don't forget for the illiterate as well, you know, who couldn't read or write, the way that they would communicate the stories and the narrative is through imagery. And it's interesting as well, because you were talking about why they were commissioned as well. So apart from the church, so the church is almost like an early art gallery, but also if you could afford it, you would have your self-portrait depicted in the corner of one of the images, especially an important image where you're depicted with Christ, because it was like a blessing for you.
We're going to look at two pieces of art now. Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, which is very familiar to most of us, at least from photographs, And in a moment, we'll look at Michelangelo's Pietà. I'm struck, by the way, these are both from roughly the same date. They're just at the end of the 15th century. What kind of advance artistically do these works represent?
Oh, incredible. I mean, yes, early Italian Renaissance. We know that Da Vinci and Michelangelo were two of the greatest rivals. So this wonderful Last Supper by Da Vinci shows Christ with his disciples just before he was crucified. And it's also part of the Jewish holiday of Passover. And each colour represents a particular figure. So, for example, St. John is depicted in red. And we're viewing it almost as if we're in the room with them, but it's up high, so it's almost as though we have to give them some sort of reverence and display a sense of humbleness, because we're looking up at them. So everything is considered.
I'm not sure, after all, that we do have a picture just now of Michelangelo's Pietà, but maybe many people can imagine it in their minds. By the way, it's in St. Peter's in the Vatican, which is where that Mass is being held right now. So in what way was this, the figure of the Mother of Christ holding the dead body of her son, in what way was that a breakthrough in art?
Oh, my goodness. Well, first of all, it's out of marble. You know, so, you chisel an ankle wrong and you've lost the foot. But this is of Christ taken down from the cross, and he's in the lap of his loving mother, Mary. It's a very tender image. We see Christ's body, it's lifeless, it's limp. And it just has so much emotion. I mean, the wonderful thing about art is that it channels emotions when words can't fit the description of what it is you're trying to say. Images do. And they transcend ages, they transcend cultures, language barriers. If you think about a children's book or a toddler's book, there's pictures.
Michelangelo was, of course, an intensely religious man. And the Pietà we've just been talking about is from the end of the 15th century. More than 50 years later, he was chiselling another Pietà at the time of his death in the 1560s. And just in case people can't imagine what we're talking about, let's have a look now at Van Gogh's Pietà. This might be quite a surprise to a number of people, but there we see the same combination of people, that is to say, the Mother of God and her son Christ, after the body's been taken down from the cross. Van Gogh, also a very religious man, but is this a surprising part of Van Gogh's work, do you think, Estelle?
No, not really, because some people believe that he depicted himself, that it's a self-portrait of Van Gogh, and it shows that he feels tortured, and we know that he did struggle throughout his life, Van Gogh. Not just the fact that he only sold one painting, but I mean just generally with his emotions. And as I say, art is a way of transferring hope, of love, of faith, of chaos out of the order of shapes and colour on a canvas. I mean, it is quite extraordinary, really, when you think about it. Actually, the University of London did some tests where you get a dopamine hit when you look at a work of art, almost like looking at somebody that you're in love with. And also the University of College of London said that if you have one art experience a month, your life is extended by 10 years. So I think we should use this time of looking at images of Christ. Don't forget that whether you're looking at images of the Last Supper or him on the cross, there's wonderful images. So the crucifixion is probably the most famous motive in Christian art. We recognize it, the simplicity of it. And then when Christ rises from his tomb 3 days later, and he's holding the white flag, which has got the red cross, the symbol of the resurrection. Some artworks make us feel quite uncomfortable. But all art, I would say all art, I'd like to call it comfy art, if it makes us want to judge it and we feel comfortable with responding to it, whether it's good or bad. And that's the power of art.
Estelle, let me dip back to the beginning of the 17th century. Caravaggio. Caravaggio's The Taking of Christ. So this is his arrest by the soldiers. It's delivered by Caravaggio in ways that are very contemporary to him, very striking, this shining armour, which almost dominates the picture, but the figure of Christ towards the left of the screen, for those who are watching on television at the moment. Caravaggio, quite a naughty man, had to run away having killed a man. Again, is one surprised to see Caravaggio depicting this?
No, and actually, I'm glad you've shown this one. This is my favourite painting from the story of Easter through art. And, you know, you've got that contrast and drama and light and shadow. It's almost like watching an Alfred Hitchcock movie, or to bring it up to date, it's almost like seeing Tom Cruise, you know, in one of the movies. It's so full of drama. And the intention was to have these images so poignant and so charismatic, as well as this sense of danger and awe, because it stopped people in falling asleep listening to the sermon. You know, so you know, there was a reason for it. And yes, as you say, Caravaggio was a man on the run, did murder somebody. But as they failed to recognise the genius of Christ, you know, these artists feel as though they failed to recognise them too. Look at Chagall. Chagall depicted him, Christ, on the cross wearing Jewish prayer shawls wrapped around him, almost like a self-portrait as well.
Yes.
Then, of course, you know, there are some other images. It doesn't just deal with the figurative. We've got abstract sculptures, which is lovely to realise as well, because it doesn't have to be a figurative image. So Anthony Caro or Barbara Hepworth, very abstract pieces. We know Barbara Hepworth. Yes.
Estelle, let me just show one more piece, if I may, which is coming closer to the modern day. Francis Bacon, a triptych of studies for the crucifixion. Take us through this one. This is obviously rather more difficult.
Yeah, well, don't forget the inspiration for Francis Bacon was his own personal story. So there's a bit of a self-portrait there. There's also the suffering, the angst, and the triptych, which is interesting as well, although does the story follow the triptych? But we know that 3 is a very magical number in Christianity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. You know, so it does cover all the bases. And obviously the title helps a little bit. But as I said, I'd like to call the more difficult works of art comfy art, in that we feel comfortable to try and work out what is going on without any judgment. And through art, we lose ourselves and we find ourselves. And it just gives us a lot of power. It doesn't have to be.
Estelle, sorry, down the line it's difficult to bring this neatly to an end, but Estelle Lover, I'm most grateful to you. Some marvellous insights. Thank you very much, and a happy Easter to you.
And to you. Happy Easter.
On this Easter Sunday, as Christians celebrate Easter, we're bringing you today's daily reflection from Brenda, from the St. Francis Parish Church.
The GB News Daily Reflection.
Hi, I'm Brenda from St. Francis Parish Church. It's Easter Sunday, and today I greet the congregation saying, Alleluia, Christ is risen. And the people say, He is risen indeed. Alleluia. Matthew's Gospel tells us that after Jesus died on the cross and was buried in the tomb, something astonishing happened. Early in the day, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb, and suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord, descending from heaven, rolled back the stone covering the tomb. The angel said, "Do not be afraid. I know you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell the disciples he has been raised from the dead." So they left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy, and ran to tell the disciples. For Christians, this is the best news in the world. The word gospel means good news, and the very heart of that good news is Jesus' resurrection. that even though everyone messes up sometimes, by our faith in Jesus, we have a way back to God. We hear the women were filled with great joy as they delivered the resurrection news. In believing Jesus conquered our sin and death, we have such joy and thankfulness that Jesus gives us a way back to God. And on Easter Day, we celebrate and say, Alleluia, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Alleluia.
Coming up, Stefan Kyriazis will be here to offer his take on some dramatic developments in London's West End this week. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Britain's first gangster turned bishop says that Prince William has nicked my best ideas. I'm not joking. It's true. You can hear him laughing next to me now. Pastor Mick champions a one-stop shop for supporting rough sleepers. Tell GB News viewers a bit about your incredible story, how you started out and how you ended up as a man on the cloth.
Yeah, so this was basically back from addiction, abuse as a child, mental health, and then into a life of crime and spiralled down, and had a final stay in a psychiatric unit on a crack addict, and my life kind of built up from there. I've been clean off drugs and alcohol for 14 years, and it's been a really painful journey. Well, I find that, in the pain, if you look at the news now, there's so much pain for people, it's like... And I've managed to find out where the joy is in the pain, and that's what I try to do. I try to show people where the joy is in the pain, because if you love, it's going to hurt. And the measure of the pain is sometimes a measure of the love that you have for other people and inside yourself. So the book kind of tells the stories of people who've had a lot of pain, but yet they've come through, just like myself.
Let me just hold this up now. The book, Walk in My Shoes. Oh, that is on sale now, and it's got a message on the back. It's got royal approval. It's impossible to visit church on the street and not be deeply moved by the work the organisation does for those in need. His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales. Of course, you've got a huge fan in Prince William. He's been to visit you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Stefan Kyriazis joins me now to reflect on another busy week treading the boards in the West End. No dog this week.
No dog. Wearing white. Can't have that. Yes, we've got a good one. On this holiest of days, we're actually going to talk about incest, which is all the rage at the moment. So we've had a bit of a tease on sort of White Lotus is the most trending television programme at the moment, and they teased the two brothers and then sort of fumbled it. But huge amount of headlines. We've just recently had two Oedipuses, or Oedipi, on stage, which again is about that. And it's just whether this is one of the very last frontiers now for jaded audiences that will actually shock or jolt them. And it's very interesting that I've just been to see Ghosts, which is an update of Ibsen's 1880s classic, which when it came out at the time was, the Telegraph called it abominable, a gross, almost putrid indecorum. Couldn't get it on stage for years. And incest is one of the themes within that, but it's been very much brought up in this one. And it's just this interesting thing of also watching the audience reactions, because this adaptation by Gary Owen brings a lot of humour into it, including into this situation, which you would think is impossible. So we've got a little bit of a clip of him talking about how he tackles looking at old plays.
I remember long ago when I first realised, or somebody pointed out to me, that Shakespeare didn't come up with many original stories. Almost everything he's done is a version of something else. It was quite a relief to me to think that I could just take work that had been done elsewhere and then sort of interrogate every choice. A lot of the process in taking on a classic is almost just finding things that are very much of the time of its original writing that don't quite work now, and just finding ways to take them out and liberate the action of the play to make sense to us now.
So do we find Ghosts shocking today?
It's an interesting one because it's basically, it stays very true to Ibsen's. He was always critiquing hypocrisy, the sort of the public facade when people are doing terrible things below the surface, but Lord forbid that it should be aired in public. And so within this one, actually, it's very much flipped. So we have Helena, who is the main character, who is always the main character, who's a widow of a brutish husband, true in both cases. And in the past version, she's endowing an orphanage. This time it's a children's trust in the modern day. And she's constantly accused of trying to whitewash her very brutish husband's legacy. She's accused by her son of being an iceberg. She's this glacial blonde beauty who always bats off problems, poo-poos little things, and always seems to be very, very, very selfish until you go underneath and see what she lived through in her marriage when she tells her that, and why she sent her son away to boarding school. So there's all these layers about actually she, in the end, is only trying to protect her husband's reputation to protect her son, not herself or him. So it's all these interesting layers of how we judge people, even those that we know, when we don't actually know what's everything that's going on underneath.
It sounds thoroughly interesting. Were you thoroughly interested?
I was really, really fascinated. And once we bring in, the son is a very troubled character. Callum Scott Howells is an explosion. He's incandescent. He's such a vivid actor. He's really, really wonderful. And he is very, very troubled. He's an actor in this case, typically neurotic. Lots of good jokes about that. His friendship with his childhood chum, who is now the housemaid and PA to his mother, is where he feels like home. So this is when Gary Owen's very much, he dropped the STDs, and in the end, in the original Ibsen, the son asks to be killed. All of this is gone, but what he brings up is the incest, and it's very much a way which we've seen everything from Game of Thrones to lots of Sam Shepard's plays in America. It's a way of deconstructing family situations, but it's also this, it's kind of the ultimate, however twisted, sense of home, of connection, and that's what this boy desperately wants with her. So I think with this, the interesting thing is that you're kind of rooting for them, so people are laughing in the audience, we're uncomfortable, there's some kind of great jokes made about it. But ultimately, the thing that stops the play still is consent, because revenants would have been a better translation of ghosts from the Ibsen original. It's things that return. Yeah. So his father was an abuser who took. And in this way, there's a moment when he discovers what he's been doing with his half-sister. Is he going to take what he wants? And that was the really shocking part of the play, issues of consent, which is much more modern. So I thought it was fascinating, interesting. Ending's a little bit rushed, but I thought it was thrilling theatre, and that one's on at the Lyric Hammersmith until May the 10th.
Right. We've a tiny bit of time left. What would you like to talk about?
We can also talk about ABBA Voyage.
Well, I saw that. It represents, I believe, $165 million investment.
Yes.
Absolutely astonishing.
Yes.
It's one of the biggest investments in theatre ever.
It's absolutely spectacular. Although also the figures, they now say that it's almost 1.4 billion in turnover in terms of the whole production and the economy, and a 46 million social value, whatever that means. So third birthday coming up.
Should we see a short clip?
We've got a glorious clip just to cheer us all up after the heavy Scandi.
Here we go. OK, so for anyone who hasn't been to the show, those are avatars.
Yes.
That is ABBA as they were many years
Motion
ago.
captured.
They are there on the...
They are.
It's absolutely stunning.
It's absolutely jaw-dropping. And in typically Swedish understatement, they have said, we'll be adding a little something to the show. So third birthday is coming up on May the 27th, and they're going to be adding new songs. So, and this is a whole thing where they have to be motion captured as they are now in their 70s, and then de-aged, and then projected onto the stage.
As I understand it, they did this 3 years ago because they knew that they needed to have an extra bit of catalogue because they needed to renew the show. So, of course, we'll all go back to it now, won't we?
We absolutely will. I can't wait. That for me, is almost a religious experience, Michael.
Thank you very much. Coming up, Artisan chocolatier Lisa Green will be here to share some chocolate with me. Easter treats. Live pictures once again of the Pope as he greets crowds in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. We're marking Easter Sunday here on GB News on Sunday with Michael Portillo.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest holiday sun forecast. The unsettled conditions generally continuing for parts of Iberia and Italy over the coming days. But for the Canaries, apart from a few showers across the northern parts of the island, it should be fairly fine here. But back up into Iberia, France and Italy, some further showers. Some of these showers will be heavy, potentially persistent in places. But for a lot of Greece, Cyprus and Turkey, continuing fine and dry here, with temperatures for most here around the low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather. The day ahead, largely dry. There'll be some warm, sunny spells. There could be a few showers around, but winds generally on the light side as well. So looking at the picture this morning, it is a fresh start in places, particularly where we've got some clear skies, some low cloud down some eastern coasts, and some still rain and drizzle across parts of Northern Ireland, across the western parts of Scotland as well. But through the day, most places dry. We will see some cloud moving up from the south, though. It could be thick enough for a few spots of rain across southeast England. Otherwise, most places dry. Temperatures reaching the mid-teens, so feeling fairly warm in the sunshine. No chilly along some eastern coast where any low cloud continues. Into the evening time, if we take a look at the details, we can see quite cloudy skies across the northern and western Isles. The cloud thick enough for some patches of light rain at times, particularly across parts of the Highlands as well. But eastern Scotland seeing some sunshine ahead of dusk. Still fairly cloudy across much of Northern Ireland. The heaviest rain across western parts. Plenty of sunny spells to end the day across much of England and Wales, though sunshine particularly hazy across central southern parts where the cloud continues to thicken. 1 or 2 light showers are possible. And then as we head overnight, this weather front in the west just pushes a little further eastward, so further outbreaks of rain for parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland, and then generally through the night it clouds over across much of England and Wales, and temperatures as a result, with all the cloud around, holding up generally between 6 and 10 degrees. So not a cold start to Easter Monday, but generally a cloudier picture. This weather front just slowly pushing north and eastwards, introducing some rain at times. In between, there'll be a lot of cloud, but there is the chance of a few sunnier breaks at times. Behind the main band of rain there, you can see some showers across Northern Ireland into Wales, the West Country, where the sun does come out. Driest weather across northeast Scotland, and in the sunshine, temperatures again reaching the mid to high teens. See you soon.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. For many, an Easter celebration would not be complete without sampling some chocolate. But this egg that I have here is an absolute work of art, a spectacular thing. It's by the Artisan chocolatier Lisa Green, and she joins me now. I mean, that is simply wonderful.
Thank you.
How have you achieved that result? What have you painted that egg with?
Well, the egg is painted with coloured cocoa butter. That, first of all, has to be melted. It's a bit like a paint. Has to be heated up, cooled down, hand-painted on an egg mould, and then decorated with edible gold leaves.
And that's what you do. I mean, how long does it take you to do an egg?
It depends. Chocolate is very temperamental, and sometimes it works beautifully. It's a bit like curly hair. You have to know what to do with it. So sometimes it's done in half an hour. Sometimes the temperature's a bit too humid, it's a bit too hot. So it can take an hour and a half.
So what does that wonderful, beautiful egg retail at?
The egg retails with some 6 mini golden eggs for £29. They were very popular over Easter.
If I may say so, I think that's pretty reasonable. You've just described how much work goes into that.
Yes.
Let me hold up another work of art here. Maybe get the camera in close on that, I don't know. But I've got here a box of the most gorgeous coloured chocolates. Do you ever find people are reluctant to eat your work?
Yes.
Yes, because it's a work of art, they don't want to...
It can be a problem. They open them up and they say, oh, they're too good to eat, and I come back a week later and they're still there. So they are beautiful and they are a bit like edible jewels, but they are meant to be eaten and enjoyed.
I'm just going to dive into this box.
Of course.
I'm going to take this one that looks a bit like a yellow
let's have
thimble.
A yellow thimble.
Yes, or an upside-down
interesting.
flower pot.
Yeah, that is actually a little beehive.
A little beehive.
And it's part of our new spring-summer collection. And it contains a honey and nougat ganache.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
Now, chocolate is not just for Easter.
No.
Tell me what you do the rest of the year.
Well, the rest of the year, because we are artisan and we kind of follow the seasons and what's available. So for winter, I might use an alcohol like port or spices like cloves. And for summer, it becomes a bit lighter. So I might use honey or strawberries or raspberries or passion fruit.
And can you make chocolate an all-round business? I mean, obviously, it has its peaks at Christmas and at Easter.
Yes.
But you can make it an all-round business?
Yes, because I think it's a bit like wine. I think if you're a wine lover, you don't mind spending a bit of money and going to a wine shop and buying a nice bottle of wine, whether it's for yourself or for a present. I think there is definitely a market there.
Well, that was absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
I'm going to hold it up again, a work of art. Do you just want to state your website?
Yes, it's info@lisagreenchocolates.co.uk or Instagram is @lisagreenchocolates.
And thank you very much, Lisa Green. That concludes the first hour of Sunday with Michael Portillo. Stay tuned as we mark Easter Sunday. Live pictures once again of the Pope greeting crowds in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. My panel returns at noon to discuss whether globalization has ended, as some claim, whether in fact stuck with it, and whether its expiry would be mourned. Author and music historian Elizabeth Saki will join me to discuss her book on the evolution of British pop and rock music. And Charlotte de Key, the producer of The Passion of Jesus, enacted in Trafalgar Square, will be here to discuss that. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We'll see a mixed bag of weather during the week ahead. Most of us seeing some warm sunshine at times, but some showery rain too, and things generally turning a bit more settled later on in the coming week. At the moment, low pressure is anchored towards the south and west of the UK. That's bringing a few showers across the southern and western spots. Certainly as we head into the evening, there'll be a few showers across the south and southeast of England. They'll ease overnight, leaving a few mist and fog patches. Some showers out towards the west too, across Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland. And those showers out across western spots will, if anything, become more widespread here as we go into the early hours of Monday. So the clearest sky is likely towards the northeast of the UK. Here we could see a touch of frost by Monday morning, but elsewhere a fairly mild night to come with temperatures in some parts up in double figures. So we start Easter Monday morning there on a fairly bright note towards the north and northeast of the UK, certainly towards the north and east of Scotland. Some early sunshine here to start the morning. Out towards the west and southwest though, a scattering of showers are likely. Those showers merging across parts of Northern Ireland to give some more persistent spells of rain in places. Some more persistent rain too across these western parts of England and Wales. One or two of those bursts of rain could be on the heavy side. So to start the day on Monday, the best of the brightness in the southeast here is likely to give way to increasing cloud as we go through the day. Those outbreaks of rain moving in from the southwest, pushing northeastwards across many parts of the UK. So some early brightness to say towards the north and east, soon fading. Skies will brighten behind the rain band across the south and west of the UK, certainly heading into the afternoon. But that could well spark off one or two heavy showers too across these southern and western spots, even one or two thundery showers in places. In the sunshine, temperatures not doing too badly. In the mid, locally high teens Celsius, peaking around about 17 or 18 Celsius, but cooler under that showery rain. Into the evening, the rain continues its journey northeastward into Scotland. Clearer skies developing towards the south and west. As we head through the rest of the week, there's a case of sunshine and showers still. Some more persistent rain across the south of the UK for a time Tuesday night into Wednesday, and perhaps things turning a bit more settled generally later in the week.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camila Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camila Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. I wish you and your families a very happy Easter. We have another hour of current affairs, religion, music and debate to come. With the tariff barriers erected by Donald Trump and his denunciation of international bodies, such as the International Criminal Court, some say that globalization is dead. As we watch boatloads of migrants landing on British beaches, others might disagree. My panel will pronounce on globalization, dead or alive. How did Britain become the country that led the world in rock and roll? Author and music historian Elizabeth Saki will join me to discuss her book on that subject. And the producer of the reenactment of the Passion of Jesus Christ in London's Trafalgar Square on Good Friday, Charlotte de Clee, will be here to discuss the history of such recreations of the crucifixions. But first, your latest news headlines from Sophia Wenzler.
Michael, thank you. It's just gone 12 o'clock. These are your headlines. Pope Francis has appeared for an Easter Sunday blessing at the Vatican and greeted crowds in St. Peter's Square following his serious illness. It wasn't clear if the 88-year-old pontiff would join the service following his discharge from hospital last month after 5 weeks of treatment for an infection that led to double pneumonia. Meanwhile, Pope Francis held a private meeting at the Vatican this morning with J.D. Vance. The US Vice President, who is a Catholic, also held a meeting with the Holy See's Secretary of State as part of a 3-day diplomatic trip to Italy. It comes amid tensions between the Vatican and the Trump administration, as the Pope has been a long-standing critic of the president, saying only in February that the mass deportation efforts are driving a major crisis that damages the dignity of men and women. Back in the UK, the King and Queen have arrived at St George's Chapel for the traditional Easter Sunday service at Windsor Castle. They are joined by members of the royal family, including Princess Anne, the Duke of Edinburgh, as well as the Duke of York, Andrew, who arrived with his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. Meanwhile, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided not to attend the Windsor service and are spending the weekend with their children in Norfolk instead. The Mirror newspaper is reporting that the couple are choosing to spend time together as a family before Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis go back to school. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has visited St Andrew's Church in Bedfordshire and has shared an Easter Sunday message.
Thank you for welcoming me. I mean, this is what the church is so important about, isn't it? I'm a stranger, I've not been in your church before, and already I feel I know you, and you've welcomed me in. But that in itself is part and parcel of what you do, what communities do across the whole country.
Have a great Easter.
Thank you very much, thank you, I really appreciate that. What are you doing here?
The Prime Minister took to X to wish a very happy Easter to Christians across the UK and around the world as they celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. He continued, saying, "As we look to the future with hope, I want to thank Christians for their huge contributions to our country." Elsewhere, Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian attacks are continuing, despite Vladimir Putin announcing a 30-hour Easter truce in Ukraine. The Ukrainian president accused the Russian army of trying to create an impression of an Easter ceasefire. It comes after the Russian president spoke in a televised meeting with his commander-in-chief, announcing a temporary ceasefire that will last until midnight tonight. But writing on social media, President Zelensky has said Russian assault operations continue on several frontline sectors and Russian artillery fire has not subsided. Now, French President Emmanuel Macron will reportedly make a state visit to the UK in May, several months before President Trump. That's according to the Sunday Times. Mr Macron will be hosted by King Charles at Windsor Castle as Britain attempts to negotiate closer trade ties with Europe. Currently, few government and royal officials know the details of the engagement, which would be Macron's first state visit to Britain 8 years after taking office. And speaking in the Oval Office on Thursday, Donald Trump suggested his own visit would be planned for September. The invitation from Charles was issued when Sir Keir Starmer visited Washington in February. In other news, police are investigating after trans rights activists reportedly defaced a statue of a feminist hero during a protest against the Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman. The Parliament Square statue of Millicent Fawcett, a prominent campaigner for women's rights in the 19th century, was daubed with graffiti. It happened as thousands of protesters marched through central London in an emergency demonstration against the decision that only biological women are women. The Met Police confirmed that it was investigating criminal damage to a total of 7 statues during the protest. The force said its officers were in Parliament Square at the time, but did not witness the criminal damage take place. And a Southampton dad is tackling the cost of living crisis by spending hundreds of pounds on Easter eggs. Billy D'Souza has gone viral on TikTok after spending more than £500 on chocolate in the hopes of raising awareness about the rising cost of sweet treats. He said he reviewed a 4-kilogram egg last year, which cost £100 at the time, but said this year it cost him £225 because of the increase in the price of ingredients. He's urging shoppers to think twice, whilst also showing what's worth your hard-earned cash this Easter. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michael.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia Wensler. President Trump's imposition of tariffs on imports to the United States, his denunciation of the International Criminal Court, his withdrawal from climate treaties have led some to pronounce and to lament the end of globalization. In Britain, we still seem mightily constrained by the decisions of international bodies and courts. And small boats daily bring immigrants to our beaches from across the planet. So, is globalization actually and lamentably alive and kicking? Joining me again is my panel, the former Conservative advisor Jennifer Powers, Chief Political Correspondent at The Times, Aubrey Allegretti, and trade unionist Andy Twelves. Aubrey, is it alive and kicking?
Well, I think that Donald Trump's sort of decision to pull the shutters down has actually probably helped Keir Starmer make the argument for closer ties with the European Union. And so we might find that there is a sort of offsetting, if you like, that as one door opens, another one closes. And so actually I think this is kind of ideal timing for Keir Starmer. In the next few months, he's going to be inviting President Ursula von der Leyen to the UK for a big summit where we'll probably see lots of sort of cosy pictures and, you know, talk about how the trade and cooperation agreement that was signed by Boris Johnson could be improved in terms of a sort of future trade deal with the European Union. So actually, I think that this is probably working in Keir Starmer's favour.
Andy Twelves, at the beginning it was thought that Trump might be very, very influential in what was happening the other side of the Atlantic. I wonder how you feel it's going. I mean, net zero, it looks to me, is in a bit of trouble in Britain. I'm not sure whether the European Court of Human Rights is in trouble or not, but people are certainly raising eyebrows about whether we should be so subject to international bodies and decisions. How do you read it? Do you think that the movement against globalisation in the United States is having an impact in Britain?
I think certainly. I mean, you know, Trump is such a personality on the world stage. It's hard to ignore him, particularly with, you know, his recent politically driven tariff war. I think from an industrial perspective, globalisation is probably coming to an end. You know, certainly, you know, the British Steel, you know, proto-nationalisation that we saw last week. But I think politically, no. I don't think we'll leave the ECHR under this Labour government. I can't imagine us leaving it anytime soon. I don't think we'll not be beholden to these international bodies. But I think certainly industrially, we will be looking more at, you know, building British, buying British, just to increase the stability of our economy as we, you know, go forward into this post-Trumpian era.
I mentioned to you earlier that Ed Miliband is today saying that he's doubling down on net zero. Do you think that that is possible? Is it something that you would welcome?
I don't think reindustrialisation and net zero are kind of mutually separated. I think, you know, a green economy, a green industrialised economy is key to the future of reindustrialisation. We do need future-proof industries and we do need to build those skills in the post-industrial towns of the Midlands and the North. And if that is for the green agenda, then that's good. There just needs to be clarity on it. Over the last 10 years, we've seen such kind of confusion about will they, won't they, with the Tories and now Labour of, you know, is it 2030, 2035, 2040? What is it? Are we going to, you know, be building nuclear? Are we going to be building solar plants? What are we going to be doing? I think there just needs to be clarity, both for the market and for those people in post-industrial towns, so they can plan their future and have the skills agenda pushed on them, so then they can reskill and have the jobs like they used to in the 60s and 80s.
Jennifer, oil and gas closing down in Britain, steel closing down in Britain, immigrants arriving by the boatful. I think some of our viewers will be quite impatient with this discussion. End of globalisation, what are you talking about?
Well, I do agree with Andy that from a supply chain perspective and some of our critical industries, then there is going to be maybe not a reshoring, but a friend-shoring in terms of looking more carefully at where our supply chains are. I would take issue, though, with the nonsense that net zero, as it's currently structured, is can go with reindustrialization. They are implacably opposed, and this government is going to have to take hard choices in terms of which side of the argument they want to fall down on, because at the end of the day, energy security is national security, and up till now, the Starmer government has been strong on rhetoric, but they're going to have to make some tough decisions.
Andy, coming to you again, I mean, is globalization a good word or a bad word? I mean, if people hear that it's dying, let's suppose for a moment that it is, would they be upset or would they rejoice?
I think probably rejoice. I've always been suspicious of globalisation. You know, I'm from the blue Labour tradition, the traditional kind of working class end of the Labour Party. I think that globalisation stripped a lot of our country of its community identity, the kind of industrial identity of our country. I think it's, you know, been broadly damaging for the working class. But I mean, you know, globalisation ending, it's such a abstract thing. Yeah. But I think most people would probably be happier than not happy over it ending, I suppose.
Well, Aubrey, you're a political observer. What do you think is happening to this word globalisation? What do you think is happening to the mood of people in this country about the word globalisation?
Well, people might wish that globalisation would sort of end, but it wouldn't necessarily kind of herald the haste-on days that people might think that it would be replaced with. And I mean, I remember during the outset of COVID just how much of a sort of shock everything felt in terms of the fragility of our supply chains. You know, the end of globalisation wouldn't necessarily herald the start of a kind of new, huge reindustrialisation on a scale that would, you know, mean that there were more jobs in this country, more manufacturing and cheaper products. So I think you sort of got to be slightly careful what you wish for, because politicians don't always deliver what you sort of hope they would, even in the event that globalisation did end.
But linking back, Aubrey, to our earlier discussion, where we were talking a lot about what Reform UK was doing, do you think all parties are going to have to respond to what Reform UK is saying by talking what would earlier have been heresy, in the 1980s probably would have been heresy, by saying, look, there are important things that need to be done in Britain, need to be manufactured in Britain, and the government must intervene in order to make sure that that happens?
I think Reform UK's been on a sort of good point here for a while. I'm sure I've come on your shows many months ago and pointed out that Richard Tice was calling for the effective nationalisation of British Steel, as he has for Thames Water as well. So sometimes Reform can sort of find the sort of chink of a good argument, and it knows how to sort of really, you know, use it to turn the screws on the Labour government. It's about how quickly Labour sort of adapts to that and how much it's willing to sort of pivot around, you know, Keir Starmer's kind of not wanting to appear too left-wing. Remember, he sort of abandoned a lot of his original leadership manifesto promises, which included backing renationalisation of certain industries. So I don't think we should expect the PM to sort of pivot back towards this big renationalisation angle. It's a reflection of the realism of the fact that the golden age with China that existed, said 10-12 years ago under David Cameron doesn't exist anymore, and a realisation of politicians that we couldn't, for example, allow Britain's only virgin steel blast furnace to operate under a Chinese company.
And Jennifer, Donald Trump's tariffs are pretty universally denounced, but I'm just wondering whether some good may come out of this, if it makes Britain think a bit more about what it ought to be doing for itself, if it thinks a bit more carefully about what it's importing from China, I mean, not just the goods, but the intelligence gathering opportunities that gives to China as well, the leverage that it gives China over our economy. Perhaps we're heading in a good direction. What do you think?
Well, this is the million-dollar question. There could be several possible positive outcomes or consequences from the tariff war. It could be that lots of countries around the world decide to lower their tariffs and their non-tariff barriers to trade, and we actually end up with a global economy which has, you know, more trade and lower, lower prices for consumers. On the domestic side, you're right, it could make us more thoughtful about which industries we look to invest in and look at our critical supply chains. But again, I think there are tough choices that are going to need to be made. And Keir Starmer, in many ways, I think is in a particularly tricky position because he has this technocratic, legalistic worldview up to the age of 50, focusing on international law being applied domestically. And Trump has heralded this new era, which is actually about the reassertion of national sovereignty. And so what does he do with that, and where does he take the country?
Andy, the most obvious area where national sovereignty doesn't seem to be effective is the arrival of migrants who have who are not coming in by legal means. They're arriving in boats on the shores. And this is going back to our previous discussion a bit. This may be eating away at Labour support. Is there anything that anyone can do about the boats arriving on the beaches, which is indeed a symptom of globalisation?
I mean, it's a difficult one. I mean, last government struggled with this. This government have been struggling with this. It's clear that across both sides of the political divide, people are struggling with this. I think, the only real way to deal with it is, to work with France. That's where they're coming from. That's where they're crossing the channel. Basically, the only way to do it is to cooperate with France, to work with France, to kind of put some actual tangible agreement in place with France to stop them crossing the channel. Because otherwise what you're going to, you hear these silly suggestions from fringe members of the far right of, just put the Navy in the channel. You can't do that. You can't do that. Let them sink. You can't do that. That goes against international law. As much as we may, not like globalisation and its effects, unfortunately its effects are very real, and we can't just bin off international law. We have to work with our partners across the channel on the continent to stop them coming across the channel in the first place.
We've been working with France for many years and paying them many hundreds of millions of pounds.
Well, clearly not effectively. We've not been working with them very effectively. Well, I think that there needs to be a kind of harsher tone to the diplomatic relations, I'd imagine. I mean, I'm no diplomat.
A harsher tone?
Yeah, I think if we've been paying...
You saw Macron and Starmer, grappling with each other. I mean, hugging each other in the loving then. It doesn't look like a harsher tone.
Well,
sorry, Aubrey?
Climbing over each other.
Climbing over each other, that's the expression. Aubrey, I mean, this remains a symptom of globalisation that I think is most immediate for many people. We were talking earlier about the working class voter. I see in Denmark, a politician made the remark that a politician of a left and centre government in Denmark said, we have to be tough on immigration because we represent the working classes. The working classes are the ones who suffer from immigration. The middle classes are exempt. I mean, I just wonder, is that the sort of thinking that can come to Britain's Labour Party, do you think?
Well, obviously, the sort of views and thoughts of the PLP, the Parliamentary Labour Party as a whole, are slightly amorphous, but this is a Parliamentary Labour Party which feels like it is willing to bite its tongue on some issues that, might have previously been quite uncomfortable for people on the left in the past. And we've seen that over things like kind of benefit cuts. It seems like there is a big kind of driver of, blue Labour thinking at the heart of Downing Street, which is willing and keen to take on this issue. And it seems that this PLP will kind of wear a lot of those kind of, policies.
Jennifer?
Well, let's not pretend that having 3 Labour MPs that identify with the blue Labour tradition, or the fact that most of the parliamentary party is willing to bite their tongue, is the same thing as the party actually making a journey back to a social democratic place.
I'm just interrupting you there, Jennifer. I'm so sorry. The royal family is now leaving the deanery at Windsor Castle following the Easter Sunday service at St George's Chapel. Their Majesties, the King and Queen, who we see there, for those watching on their screens, King and Queen emerging. They were joined by the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Prince Andrew, Sarah Ferguson, as well as their daughters. It's been commented that the Prince and Princess of Wales did not attend, and instead they marked the occasion with their close family at Amner Hall in Norfolk. Queen is receiving a posy.
And a car is pulled forward to block the view.
Applause from the crowd, and it looks to me as if Her Majesty the Queen is going over to talk to the crowd. Queen shaking hands with quite a large crowd that's gathered outside. Our view of the Queen is just blocked at the moment by someone else's camera. But I can see her light blue hat moving down the line of the crowd. Majesty the King heading towards the car, perhaps giving a hint that time has come to move on. And indeed, Her Majesty the Queen joins him, and I think they're going to board the car and leave. Noisy start of the engine, and the car will soon carry away Their Majesties the King and Queen. Aubrey, we were talking earlier about the Pope. I mean, it just is marvellous to keep seeing the King, who's been suffering from cancer, and who's adopted the most vigorous calendar of events, hasn't he?
He certainly has. And I mean, if he's putting on a state visit for Emmanuel Macron as well, then you know, he'll be certainly getting out the good silver in Buckingham Palace. And I think he was at one point, wasn't he supposed to go to Italy? So he's clearly been back on his feet and keen to show that he's quite a restless man, isn't he? I don't imagine that he likes that period of being quite cooped up. He likes being a public-facing king and monarch. So
he's waited a long time for it.
Exactly, yes. And as we saw there, the Queen was kind of keen to go over and have a little chat with some of the revellers waiting outside to speak to her. So yeah, they're very clearly keen to engage.
Andy, is your royalist heart beating very hard inside your chest there?
I'm actually, you know, I've got a soft spot for the royals. I think, you know, it's nice to have a British institution that's lasted the test of time, but I like what Charles has done, going from just the defender of the faith to defender of faith, almost, you know, protecting all of those that have faith in this country, and I quite like his modern monarchy, honestly. It's quite nice.
Jennifer, was that switch to defending all faiths as popular with you as with Andy?
Look, we all have to move with the times. I think what's wonderful is to see the royal family at church this morning, something which, you know, hundreds of thousands of us have done this morning. And isn't that what the royal family is all about? It's about a reflection of the people whom they represent. And I think you noted earlier, Michael, that the numbers going to church have risen for the first time in a very long time over the last year.
And to me, a slightly unexpected picture. This is the Duke of York with Sarah Ferguson. Sort of two elements of surprise in that, I suppose. But anyway, Duke of York attended along with Their Majesties. Panel, thank you very much. You've commented on all sorts of things, including the royal family and the papacy. Very good work. Jennifer Powers, Aubrey Allegretti and Andy Twells. Coming up, the London Marathon is just a week away. Sophie Reaper will report an inspiring story of a veteran who's running next Sunday. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Utterly fascinating. It's a 3D rendering of the wreckage for the first time. It's going to be projected onto a warehouse wall in London. People will be able to see this in its full magnificence for the first time. Tell us how exciting you think this is.
This is amazing footage and amazing pictures. To be able to see that kind of detail underwater of the Titanic, I think is really amazing. One of the things that I thought was really interesting was they said that the punctures were a series of A4 size holes along the side of the hull, not a big long slice, which would have clearly doomed the ship as the iceberg slid down the hull.
And it's fascinating. There is also a video, a recreation. They've analysed, as you said, the damage caused to the hull when the ship famously hit that iceberg. And it now appears, David Market, it was more of a glancing blow. And that is leading the researchers to believe in this fascinating project. If there'd just been a moment of seeing the glacier a bit sooner, then it may have been a glancing blow that would not have taken the Titanic down.
Absolutely. If she had been going just a little bit slower, if they had immediately responded with the rudder in the right direction, and if the ship had been designed with a bigger rudder relative to the size of the ship, any of these little tiny things could have met, instead of a glancing blow, missing it by just 1 meter or so.
And it is incredible because this is part of a documentary. It's called Titanic, The Digital Resurrection. It's going to be broadcast on the National Geographic Channel on Monday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewbs, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dewbs Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. With just 1 week to go until the annual London Marathon, many people will be running in aid of causes close to their hearts. One veteran of the Royal Air Force will run to support the Royal British Legion. It helped to restore his life after he became homeless. Our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper spoke to him ahead of next week's race.
My mental health was very seriously challenged. I was contemplating a lot of things and dark things, let's just say.
After leaving the RAF, Ben's life slowly began to disintegrate. After losing a loved one and finding himself unable to afford housing, he became homeless.
I didn't have a constant stream of money coming in. I couldn't afford an apartment or a flat or any sort of housing accommodation. I kept it from a family that I ended up borrowing a tent and living on the back of a local golf course.
But after reaching out to the Royal British Legion, things started to look up. They signposted services, covered bills when he couldn't, and even helped fund him to become a personal trainer and qualify as an adult nurse. Now, Ben wants to give something back.
Without the RBL, I would not be in the happiest place of my life right now. So I obviously am going to be competing in the London Marathon and raising as much funds as possible for the Royal British Legion. That's phase one, which is then accumulating to Project 2027, which is what I've called it, where I'm hoping to be doing the Race of the World, which is 7 marathons, 7 days across 7 continents. And again, I'm going to be doing that for Royal British Legion and also a charity that helps people who are on the spectrum get involved in sport as well.
Ben is just one of around 30,000 people the Royal British Legion helps every single year. But thanks to continued donations, they are able to carry on providing vital services to our veterans and their loved ones.
We're delighted to announce the launch of a new £1 million funding award. This has been supported by the players of the People's Postcode Lottery. With the public support, with Ben's support, the People's Postcode Lottery support, we are able to provide that vital support either from recovery programmes, financial, emotional programmes that give those ex-serving personnel and the wider armed forces community. It allows us to support them whenever they need us, wherever they are, for life.
Next weekend, Ben will run in the London Marathon as he continues his work, giving back to the charity whom in turn gave him back his life. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
And thank you very much, Sophie Reaper, for that report. You can donate to Ben's Just Giving page. Here, the title is Ben's Fundraiser for the Royal British Legion. Time to tell you now about our biggest giveaway to date. Your chance to win a motorhome worth over £67,000 and £5,000 in tax-free cash. Imagine all the places you could go with that. You could be our biggest winner to date, and here are the details that you need.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new LNAG Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up, why was it particularly in Britain that rock and roll took off in the 1960s? Author and music historian Elizabeth Sharkey will join me to discuss her book on that subject. But first, your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Michael, thank you. Your headlines at 12:30. Russia says Ukraine has broken the Easter ceasefire more than 1,000 times. That comes just hours after Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of doing the same. The Ukrainian president claimed Russian attacks are continuing despite Putin announcing a 30-hour Easter truce in Ukraine. The Ukrainian president accused the Russian army of trying to create an impression of a ceasefire. It comes after the Russian president spoke in a televised meeting with his commander-in-chief, announcing a temporary ceasefire that will last until midnight tonight. But writing on social media, President Zelensky has said Russian assault operations continue on several frontline sectors and Russian artillery fire has not subsided. Back in the UK, the King and Queen have greeted crowds outside Windsor Castle after attending the traditional Easter Sunday service at St George's Chapel. They were joined at the service by members of the royal family, including Princess Anne and the Duke of Edinburgh, as well as the Duke of York, Andrew, who arrived with his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. Meanwhile, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided not to attend the service and are spending the weekend with their children in Norfolk instead. The Mirror newspaper is reporting that the couple are choosing to spend time together as a family before Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis go back to school. Elsewhere, Pope Francis has appeared for an Easter Sunday blessing at the Vatican and greeted crowds in St Peter's Square following his serious illness. It wasn't clear if the 88-year-old pontiff would join the service following his discharge from hospital last month after 5 weeks of treatment for an infection that led to double pneumonia. Meanwhile, Pope Francis held a private meeting at the Vatican this morning with J.D. Vance. The US Vice President, who is a Catholic, also held a meeting with the Holy See's Secretary of State as part of a 3-day diplomatic trip to Italy. It comes amid tensions between the Vatican and the Trump administration, as the Pope has been a long-standing critic of the president, saying in February that the mass deportation efforts are driving a major crisis that damages the dignity of men and women. And free breakfast clubs are launching at 750 schools across England next week, but teachers have warned government funding will fall short of the cost. From Tuesday, thousands of parents will be able to access 30 minutes of morning childcare as part of a trial period ahead of an expected national rollout. Labour made a manifesto commitment to spend £315 million on the programme by 2028. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said the move would help with breaking down barriers to opportunity, but school leaders have warned the pilot could lead to budget shortfalls. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Thames Valley has introduced equity training, which covers topics including white privilege plus microaggressions. And, of course, yesterday, West Yorkshire Police were barring white British people from jobs. What on earth is going on? Well, let's bring in the Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner, Lisa Townsend. Lisa, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. From West Yorkshire to Thames Valley, they seem to be absolutely consumed with some kind of woke mind virus. What's going on in our police forces?
Good afternoon, Martin. Good to be on again. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And it's different police forces. And I don't think actually it's fair to blame any individual force for this or any individual sort of chief constable or officers, because I think this is something that's actually coming from the top of policing. And we've seen it now quite a few years. I mean, critical race theory, something we've been talking about relatively recent history. Actually, it's been around for about 40 years. And I think this, what we're seeing now, actually, is this kind of coming to the fore. But we do see it right from the top. You know, the National Police Chiefs Council, Gavin Stevens, who is currently chair of the National Police Chiefs Council, was my chief constable in Surrey, you know, and he is surrounded by people. It's not fair to say it's just Gavin either. He's surrounded by people who believe this. And we are seeing it, unfortunately, right across our public institutions. And let's be honest, Martin, a lot of our private ones as well. But I do worry about it when it starts to take a hold in policing.
What's causing it? Is it some kind of guilt complex for historical wrongdoings? I mean, where does this come from?
I think it's a lot of that, and I think it is linked to the wider issues that you and I, Martin, have spoken about before, whether that's around, you know, supporting trans men and women within the force, supporting gay people, which of course we should be doing. And I do think a lot of this comes from a history that policing has.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. How did Britain become a huge global influence in pop and rock music in the mid-20th century? What cultural and historical conditions permitted that phenomenon? Author and music historian Elizabeth Saki argues in her book titled Why Britain Rocked that the success of bands like the Beatles had deep roots. Indeed, she points to historical influences from the era of Henry VIII and highlights the contribution of centuries of folk music and ballads of Celts and Quakers. Elizabeth Sharkey joins me now. It is a remarkable book, remarkable for its scholarship and its intensity and its amount of history. So just to provoke you with a bit of a summary. So there's a lot of sort of folk music in Britain.
Yes.
Quite a lot of which gets exported to the United States as people from these islands go over to America and settle. Mm-hmm. And then quite a lot of it sort of comes back in various forms. But one of the things you say is that black music was particularly welcome in Britain, whereas in many parts of the United States, the black musicians, at least, were shuttered. They were kept out, but they were welcomed into the United States. Is this an important part of why Britain became the focus in the 1960s?
Yes, it is, but it all starts much earlier than the 20th century. So what's really interesting is that in the 18th century, there's mass migration from Scotland, the northern counties of England and Northern Ireland, and Ireland as well. Mass migration leaving the British Isles, going over to America to settle in the colonies in Appalachia, which then feeds into the folk music of America. But then in the 19th century, we see migration coming the other way of African-American artists who find a much more freer atmosphere for them to have careers, the first of which was Ira Aldridge, who kind of struck a chord with me because I'm an actress and I know how important it is to kind of, if you need to act, you need to act. And he, age 17, got on a ship and came over to Britain
Where he was a considerable success.
He did. He had terrible racist attacks in the sort of theatre critics, but he had immense popularity around the British Isles. And he had a really...
Performing, for example, Othello. But
Othello was really key, actually, which is also really interesting. And there's a theme of Othello running through all of this, because it leads to Paul Robeson as well. So there is Ira having this incredible, successful career as an actor. And then there's the hand-on to Paul Robeson, who also came over here in sort of maybe about 100 years later,
yes.
In the 1920s. And he met with Ira Aldridge's daughter, who gave him a pair of earrings that Ira wore when he played Othello. She gave them to Paul Robeson in the hope that he would play Othello, which he did in 1930 in London. So what this set up was this sort of signage to African-American creatives that you can come to England and actually have a career and make money and be famous. And
yes, you've made
success.
the connection there between actors and musicians.
Yes.
And then tell us about how some of those musicians, black musicians, find themselves more welcome in Britain than they did at home.
Well, in the 19th century, you've got the abolition fever, which sort of peaks and troughs, but generally there was a bit of more of an open atmosphere in Britain, relatively speaking, compared even to the north of America in the same time period. So it was the sort of paving the way for African-American artists to come to Britain, which then leads to Josh White, who was connected to Paul Robeson in a BBC radio play that they recorded. And Josh White was the first of the folk blues players to come to Britain and be incredibly successful. And there's so many touching descriptions of how he was received and the fans that sort of mob his dressing room afterwards wanting to know how he plays his guitar. And it's really sweet, actually.
My elder brother got me into the music of Lonnie Donegan
when
I was a child.
Yes.
Now, why was... You see, I didn't appreciate it at the time. Why was Lonnie Donegan such a critical figure from your point of view, such a key figure?
Well, he's had Scottish and Irish heritage, which is not so much the heritage itself, but it's the foremost of music being important in the family home, which is really what the book's about. It's about...
Give us a look at that.
And there's...
Why Britain Rocked.
Shane MacGowan, circa 1976, pogoing.
Yeah.
It's the importance of music being foremost in the family home, which leads to a family inheritance of musicality in sometimes often the poorest people who have got nothing to hand on except their songs and their music.
But Lonnie Donegan is singing songs that have come to him from the United States.
Yes.
Cumberland Gap.
Yes.
Line.
And it's the folk music of the ballads that left the British Isles and lodged in the Appalachians and stayed there for centuries, not changing at all. And then they sort of fell down into sort of form the string bands and the blues and rock and roll ultimately through hillbilly music.
Now, what's all this got to do with the Beatles? First of all, maybe a word about the Beatles' background, because you allege that they have a Celtic background.
Yes, well, they've all got connections to Ireland, which again makes music making foremost in the family. So Paul McCartney, for example, his father he played in a jazz orchestra, played the piano all the time in the home, and it's just about that. It's really that simple, actually, growing up with live music in the home.
But what evidence do we have that at the beginning the Beatles are absorbing, for example, black American influences?
Yes, well, that's when we get to British pop history as we know it, all the blues records coming into the ports. Chuck Berry, the Everly Brothers are important, but there's a wonderful quote in the Everly Brothers documentary that they tried really hard to be Irish. So, and it's the harmonies, and the harmonies are so important because that's what the Beatles were hearing, those wonderful harmonies. And
you quote a seminal moment for the Rolling Stones, or members of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Oh, to the Manchester Blues. That was a night when you had a collective of blues players in one night, and
who's there? Mick Jagger's there. Keith Richards.
Yes, and from that night onwards, they are completely starstruck by the blues players. But Manchester has a really interesting connection because the connection to the enslaved people of the South goes back another century, whereby the Lancashire cotton mill workers refused to break the embargo on the cotton to help the Confederates keep up their...
The mill workers were suffering terribly because the cotton was not arriving from the south. It was blockaded by the Union.
Exactly.
But the workers were in solidarity
with the African American enslaved.
With the African American enslaved. So how important was Britain in the 1960s, and has it lost that, or has it kind of maintained it in the 5 or 6 decades since?
I think there's obviously a lot of amazing music around. I think it's more fractured now, so the concentration's not there. I think we miss the weekly Top of the Pops. We always watch it on a Friday night. I think a lot of people do. And I think we miss that sort of central, everyone get-together show where you can see what's the zeitgeist listening to.
You wish you'd lived through the 60s, don't you?
Oh, well, I know. It's funny because I watched The Graduate again the other night and I thought, oh, I just want to be there. The music, and I watched a documentary on Simon and Garfunkel last night, and just hearing how they made Bridge Over Troubled Water just made me swoon, you know. But it's also the quality of production. I quite like to go back to that, capturing the echo. They talk a lot about echo, and that's a really big part of their sound.
Thank you. It's a remarkable book. It's called Why Britain Rocked. It's by Elizabeth Sharkey. Elizabeth, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Coming up, the producer of the Passion Play that was staged in London's Trafalgar Square on Good Friday will join me to discuss the importance of such reenactments. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here are the forecasts for top European destinations.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest holiday sun forecast. The uncertain conditions generally continuing for parts of Iberia and Italy over the coming days. But for the Canaries, apart from a few showers across the northern parts of the island, it should be fairly fine here. But back up into Iberia, France and Italy, some further showers. Some of these showers will be heavy, potentially persistent in places. But for a lot of Greece, Cyprus and Turkey, continuing fine and dry here, with temperatures for most here around the low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got a mixed bag of weather to come for the rest of the bank holiday weekend. Some warm sunshine, but also some showery rain in places too. We've got low pressure centred towards the south of the UK, a low pressure system also out towards the west. Both of these are bringing some showers in across some southern and western spots, but elsewhere it's a mostly fine afternoon to come, plenty of sunshine around, but I'd say 1 or 2 showers possible towards the south and southeast, and also more than way of showers affecting parts of Northern Ireland and the far west and northwest of Scotland. In the sunshine, temperatures not doing too badly at all, particularly out towards the west. We'll see highs in the mid, locally upper teens Celsius, peaking at around about 18 Celsius, that's 64 in Fahrenheit. A bit cooler down some North Sea coast, though, with a bit of an onshore breeze coming off a fairly chilly North Sea. So to end the day, we'll see plenty of sunshine across the north and northeast of Scotland. A few showers are out towards the north and west of the country, and temperatures here a little bit suppressed around about 9 or 10 Celsius. There'll be quite a few showers to end the day across Northern Ireland, the best of the sunshine here across the east of the province. And elsewhere, though, across the UK, plenty of sunshine as we go into the early part of the evening, but notice towards the south and southeast, still a risk of some showers, and those showers will continue for a time as we head into the evening. They'll start to ease, though, later on in the evening, giving way to some clear spells, a few mist or fog patches. Certainly clearer towards the northeast of the UK, some mist and fog in places here, and a touch of frost towards the northeast in a few rural spots. Whereas out towards the west and southwest, it's a milder picture, but here we'll see some showery bursts of rain moving in from the west and southwest. 1 or 2 of those bursts of rain could turn heavy as we head towards Easter Monday morning. As for Monday itself then, plenty of fine weather to start the day towards the north and east. This showery rain though from moving in from the southwest, moving northeastwards into many parts of the UK. Some skies are brightening towards the south and east as we go through the day, but that could well spark off 1 or 2 heavy, potentially even thundery showers. And in the sunshine, temperatures again not doing too badly, peaking in the mid to high teens. A bit warmer too out towards the east and northeast of the UK, with temperatures up to 14 Celsius near the east coast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. On Good Friday, as is tradition, the Passion of Jesus was staged in Trafalgar Square by the Winter Hall players. A cast of more than 100 actors and volunteers dressed in period costumes were joined by horses, donkeys and doves to bring the story to life in central London. Joining me now is the producer of the Passion play, Charlotte de Clee. Charlotte, welcome to GB News. This is an extraordinary undertaking. An actor was actually put up on a cross in Trafalgar Square, is that right?
That is right. And two thieves to left and right of him. I mean, he's not nailed, but he is, he's put up there. It's to make it as real as it possibly can be 2,000 years on.
This is kind of a new tradition in London. I remember as a child hearing about the Passion Play, which was every 10 years at Ober Ammergau. But for the last 10 years, this has been an annual event in London. How did that come about, Charlotte?
It's actually 12 years, but even so, I guess we live about 30 miles. Wintershall's about 30 miles south of London. And my father, Peter Hutley, had an experience when he was about 68, and he thought, as a businessman, how can I tell this story to people? Because I don't think people know it. I mean, we did go to church as kids, but not, Christmas and Easter. And he thought he'd write a play. And he started with the Nativity play, which has been going on for over 30 years down near Wintershall. And we have about 5,000 or 6,000 people come to that. And then he decided for the millennium that he would write the full life of Christ. And he did. And then he thought, after many thousands of people came to see it over a week in June. And it was about 4 or 5 hours long, and people bring a picnic and spend the day moving round because it's sort of interactive theatre. And he and Mum thought, there'll be only people who buy tickets come to Wintershall, so we better see if we can take it out into the marketplace. So where better to take it than Trafalgar Square? So he approached the GLA, and the rest is history, really. We've been going for about 12 years.
For those who are not watching on television, who are listening to us as a radio station, we've seen this extraordinary sight of the 3 crucified figures in Trafalgar Square with red double-decker buses leaping by. Very, very briefly, Charlotte, very briefly, why does it matter? Why do you do it?
I think we do it to remind people why Easter is. I mean, I've got grandchildren here who think it's all about chocolate and bunnies, and it is about chocolate and bunnies and eggs, but actually it's about Jesus dying on Good Friday and rising again on Easter Day. And so we should know that, and they're not taught it at school anymore, and we're just telling the story. And historically, culturally, educationally, and if it happens to be spiritual for you, that's fine. But actually, it's those other 3 things that are so vitally important.
Charlotte, absolutely extraordinary. I mean, just seeing those pictures that we've been showing on the screen a moment ago, you bring forth the Easter story in the most extraordinary and dramatic way. Thank you very much indeed, Charlotte de Clee. And thank you, dear viewers, for your company this weekend. I want to thank all my guests who've given up their time on Easter Sunday to join me for insightful and inspiring discussion. I wish you and your families a very happy Easter. I'll be back at the same time next week. But next on GB News is Dawn Neeson with The Weekend. Dawn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Portillo, and a very, very happy Easter to you and to everybody out there. We've got a cracking show coming up for you. We have got some great last-minute tips on food and drink for your day-to-day. We have also got a brilliant Harry and Meghan exclusive, as well as some fun and games for you. But before we get to all of that, shall we have a look at the weather, and I'll see you very soon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We'll see a mixed bag of weather during the week ahead. Most of us seeing some warm sunshine at times, but some showery rain too, and things generally turning a bit more settled later on in the coming week. At the moment, low pressure is anchored towards the south and west of the UK. That's bringing a few showers across the southern and western spots. Certainly as we head into the evening, there'll be a few showers across the south and southeast of England. They'll ease overnight, leaving a few mist and fog patches. Some showers out towards the west too, across Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland. And those showers out across western spots will, if anything, become more widespread here as we go into the early hours of Monday. So the clearest sky is likely towards the northeast of the UK. Here we could see a touch of frost by Monday morning, but elsewhere a fairly mild night to come with temperatures in some parts holding up in double figures. So we start Easter Monday morning there on a fairly bright note towards the north and northeast of the UK, certainly towards the north and east of Scotland. Some early sunshine here to start the morning. Out towards the west and southwest though, a scattering of showers are likely. Those showers merging across parts of Northern Ireland to give some more persistent spells of rain in places. Some more persistent rain too across these western parts of England and Wales. One or two of those bursts of rain could be on the heavy side. So to start the day on Monday, the best of the brightness in the southeast here is likely to give way to increasing cloud as we go through the day. Those outbreaks of rain moving in from the southwest, pushing northeastwards across many parts of the UK. So some early brightness to say towards the north and east, soon fading. Skies will brighten behind the rain band across the south and west of the UK, certainly heading into the afternoon. But that could well spark off one or two heavy showers too across these southern and western spots, even one or two thundery showers in places. In the sunshine, temperatures not doing too badly. In the mid, locally high teens Celsius, peaking around about 17 or 18 Celsius, but cooler under that showery rain. Into the evening, the rain continues its journey northeastward into Scotland. Clearer skies developing towards the south and west. As we head through the rest of the week, there's a case of sunshine and showers still. Some more persistent rain across the south of the UK for a time Tuesday night into Wednesday, and perhaps things turning a bit more settled generally later in the week.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition